Rose O'Neal Greenhow was born in 1817 in Montgomery County, Maryland. At the start of the war, she became a widow with 4 daughters, one of them named Rose. She was well liked and had many friends on her side. She was a leader in Washington society and one of the most celebrated female spies. Her spying was so successful that Jefferson Davis credited her with winning the Battle of Manassas. She received information from a number of men of high military positions. In 1861, she was imprisoned in her own house and in the old Capitol prison, but continued to send coded letters. After being released from jail, she traveled abroad to Bermuda and Europe to continue spying. Unfortunately, on her way back from Europe, the ship she was on ran aground. She tried to escape the sinking boat in a rowboat, but ended up drowning. In 1864, she was buried in Oakdale Cemetery in Wilmington. George Donnellan was a Washington native. Before the war, he had been an employee of the U.S. Land Office, gaining experience and knowledge that would serve him well while traveling as a spy. He worked closely with Rose Greenhow, especially in the Battle of Bull Run. He was arrested after the Battle of Bull Run by Allen Pinkerton, but was able to escape with the rest of the Confederate Army. George also played a part in the Battle of Manassas. He too is given credit for the Confederate victory. He traveled by use of buggies, a ferry, and cavalry couriers. John Surratt was born in 1844 in Washington, D.C. As a spy, he carried dispatches about Union troop movement across the Potomac River. He also lived at home with his mom and sister most of the time. He was very passionate about his side of the war, but was able to still be humorous about it with friends and family. He traveled abroad to Europe as part of his espionage. He was introduced to John Wilkes Booth in December 1864. After secretly planning the assassination of President Lincoln, his correspondence became very vague as he tried to hide his secrets. Sarah Thompson was born in Greene County, Tennessee in 1838. She married Sylvanus Thompson and had 2 kids. During the war, her husband was ambushed and killed by a Confederate soldier. Wanting to continue her husband's work, she joined the Union as a spy. She had poor literacy, but was still able to communicate through letters. She played the central role in killing John Hunt Morgan by telling the army of his whereabouts while he was sleeping. She later remarried and became an army nurse and a public speaker. She died on April 21, 1909, after being struck by an electric car in Washington, D.C. She is buried in the Arlington National Cemetery. Harriet Tubman was born a slave in Dorchester County around 1820. Because she was born a slave, she didn't know her exact birth date or her age. She suffered a lot of abuse during her life, but always had a strong faith in God. She worked from 1845 to 1860 by helping slaves escape. She escorted over 300 slaves to freedom. She was was not afraid of being punished or arrested for what she was doing. She also took jobs as a nurse and a cook in the hospital during the war. She made dangerous trips to the South to spy and escort slaves to freedom. Many of her actions were done out of the goodness of her heart because she wanted to help others. Elizabeth Van Lew was born on October 25, 1818, in Richmond, Virginia. As a child, her Quaker school reinforced her abolitionist sentiments. After her father's death, her family decided to free their 9 slaves and purchase their relatives. Many of the emancipated slaves continued to work for her as paid servants, and she used them to work in her spy ring. She often visited the Libby prison in Richmond, Virginia. She would provide the prisoners of war with information about safe houses and Union sympathizers. In return, they would give her information on Confederate troop levels and movements. Her spy ring was so efficient that she developed her own cipher system. She was credited by Union Commander George H. Sharp as being the greater portion of their intelligence in 1864 to 1865.